What's going on, everybody? It is Jake back at it again for another reading of the raw material. Sorry, I really hope that I finish this soon, man. It's a long journey reading an entire book off to people. So I hope I finish this soon. We're I think halfway there. Yeah, we're about halfway there. I wasn't going to make a video today. I did that channeling last night, and I channeled so many beings that I ended up giving myself a migraine. And I had a real bad headache. So last night I just rested. But I woke up this morning and there was 100 views. So I really appreciate all the input and all the feedback I'm getting from you guys. I really do. Like I said, I wasn't going to make a video today, but I thought, tomorrow's Christmas Eve and then Christmas. So my dad's in town staying with my brother right now, and then he's going to stay with me tomorrow. So I'll probably be gone for a couple days. We'll see. It depends on what happens. I'll probably try to make a video on Christmas. Maybe see if anyone wants to come. Maybe wear a Christmas hat, kind of just be goofy. Whatever, have some fun. So we will see. But I wanted to make a video today, so I'm just going to do some of the raw stuff. And a lot of people are really interested in this, so I'm really hoping that if there's any of you guys who are new and you see this and you like this information, go back and watch the first video. I think this is part 3. I haven't really looked. I think this is part 3. But I just looked to see where we're at. So let's do this. I'll probably be on here for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. This goes by extremely fast. So we will see. So this is where I left off. I'm gonna basically state the last thing that I read off, just to give you guys a little brush up. So, at what point would this calling be great enough for you to come openly among the people on Earth? How many entities on Earth would have to call the Confederation? We do not calculate the possibility of coming among your peoples by the numbers of calling, but by a consensus among an entire societal memory complex, which has become aware of the infinite consciousness of all things. This has been possible among your peoples only in isolated instances. In the case wherein a social memory complex, which is a servant of the Creator, sees this situation and has an idea for the appropriate aid, which can only be done among your peoples, the social memory complex, desiring this project, lays it before the Council of Saturn. So we've talked about the Council of Saturn before. If it is approved, quarantine is lifted. I have a question about the Council. Who are the members and how does the Council function? The members of the Council are representatives from the Confederation and from those vibratory levels of your inner planes bearing responsibility for your third density. The names are not important because there are no names. Your mind-body-spirit complex requests names, and so, in many cases, the vibratory sound complexes, which are consonant with the vibratory distortions of each entity, are used. However, the name concept is not part of the Council. If names are requested, we will attempt them. However, not all have chosen names. In number, the Council that sits in constant session, though varying in its members by means of balancing which takes place, what you would call irregularly, is 9. That is the Session Council. So if you've heard of the Council of 9 before, there you go. So I just answered that for you guys, or the material answered it for you guys. To back up this council, there are 24 entities which offer their services as requested. These entities faithfully watch and have been called guardians. The council operates by means of what you would call telepathic contact with the oneness or unity of the 9, the distortions blending harmoniously so that the law of one prevails with ease. When a need for thought is present, the Council retains the distortion complex of this need, balancing it as described, and then recommends what it considers as appropriate action. This includes 1. The duty of admitting social memory complexes to the Confederation. 2. Offering aid to those who are unsure how to aid the social memory complex, requesting aid in a way consonant with both the call, the law, and the number of those calling. 3. Internal questions in the Council are determined. These are the prominent duties of the Council. They are, if in any doubt, able to contact the 24, who then offer consensus, judgment, and thinking to the Council. The Council then may reconsider any question. You mentioned the 9 who sit on the council. Is this 9 the same 9 as those mentioned in this book? The Council of 9 has been retained in semi-undistorted form by 2 main sources, that known in your naming as Mark and that known in your naming as Henry. In one case, the channel became the scribe. In the other, the channel was not the scribe. However, without the aid of the scribe, the energy would not have come to channel. The names that you spoke of, were they Mark Probert and Henry Puharich? This is correct. I am interested in the application of the law of one as it pertains to free will with respect to what I would call the advertising done by UFO contacts with the planet Earth. The Council seems to have allowed the quarantine to be lifted many times over the past 30 years. This seems to me to be a form of advertising for what we are doing right now, so that more people will be awakened. Am I correct? It will take a certain amount of untangling of conceptualization of your mental complex to reform your query into an appropriate response. Please bear with us. The Council of Saturn has not allowed the breaking of quarantine in the time-space continuum you mentioned. There is a certain amount of landing taking place. Some are of the entities known to you as the group of Orion. Secondly, there is permission granted not to break quarantine by dwelling among you, but to appear in thought form capacity for those who have eyes to see. Thirdly, you are correct in assuming that permission was granted at the time-space in which your first nuclear device was developed and used for Confederation members to minister your peoples in such a way as to cause mystery to occur. This is what you mean by advertising and is correct. The mystery and unknown quality of the occurrences we are allowed to offer have the hoped-for intention of making your peoples aware of infinite possibility. When your peoples grasp infinity, then and only then can the gateway be opened to the law of one. And ain't that the truth? You said that Orion was the source of some of these contacts with UFOs. Can you tell me something of that contact, its purpose? Consider, if you will, a simple example of intentions which are bad or good. This example is Adolf, so Hitler. This is your vibratory sound complex. The intention is to presumably unify by choosing this distortion complex called elite from a social memory complex, and then enslaving by various effects those who are seen by the distortion as not elites. There is then the concept of taking the social memory complex thus weeded and adding it to a distortion thought of by the so-called Orion group as an empire. The problem facing them is that they face a great deal of random energy released by the concept of separation. This causes them to be vulnerable as the distortions amongst their own members are not harmonized. What is the density of the Orion group? Like the Confederation, the densities of the mass consciousness which comprise the group are varied. There are a very few third density, a large number of fourth density, a similarly large number of fifth density, and very few sixth density entities comprising this organization. Their numbers are perhaps 1/10 ours at any point in the space-time continuum, as the problem of spiritual entropy causes them to experience constant disintegration of their social memory complexes. Their power is the same as ours. The law of one blinks neither at the light nor the darkness, but is available for service to others and service to self. However, service to others results in service to self, thus preserving and further harmonizing the distortions of those entities seeking intelligent infinity through these disciplines. Those seeking intelligent infinity through the use of service to self create the same amount of power, but, as we said, have constant difficulty because of the concept of separation which is implicit in the manifestations of the service to self which involve power over others. This weakens and eventually disintegrates the energy collected by such mind-body-spirit complexes who call the Orion group and the social memory complexes which comprise the Orion group. It should be noted, carefully pondered, and accepted that the law of one is available to any social memory complex which has decided to strive together for any seeking of purpose, be it service to others or service to self. The laws, which are the primal distortions of the law of one, then are placed into operation, and the illusion of space-time is used as a medium for the development of the results of those choices freely made. Thus all entities learn no matter what they seek. All learn the same, some rapidly, some slowly. Using as an example the fifth density concerning the social memory complex of the Orion group, what was their previous density before they became a fifth density? The progress through densities is sequential. Kind of already knew that. A fifth density social memory complex would be comprised of mind-body-spirit complexes harvested from fourth density. Then the conglomerate or mass mind-body-spirit complex does its melding, and the results are due to the infinitely various possibilities of combinations of distortions. I'm trying to understand how a group such as the Orion group would progress. How would it be possible if you were in the Orion group and pointed towards self-service to progress from our third density to the fourth? What learning would be necessary for that? This is the last question of length for this instrument at this time. You will recall that we went into some detail as to how those not oriented towards seeking service for others, yet nonetheless, found and could use the gateway to intelligent infinity. This is true at all densities in our octave. We cannot speak for those above us, as you would say, in the next quantum or octave of beingness. This is, however, true of this octave of density. The beings are harvested because they can see and enjoy the light love of the appropriate density. Those who have found this light love light, without benefit of a desire for service to others, nevertheless, by the law of free will, have the right to the use of light love for whatever purpose. Also, it may be inserted that there are systems of study which enable the seeker of separation to gain these gateways. So either way, it's kind of like either way you go on your path, which is very, very interesting to me. This study is as difficult as the one which we have described to you, but there are those with the perseverance to pursue the study just as you desire to pursue the difficult path of seeking to know in order to serve. The distortion lies in the effect that those who seek to serve the self are seen by the law of one as precisely the same as those who seek to serve others, for are all not one. To serve yourself as to serve others is a dual method of saying the same thing if you can understand the essence of the law of one. At this time, we would answer any brief questions you have. And then they talk about the lady, so I'm going to skip that. Okay, so next session. I have a question regarding what I call the advertising of the Confederation. It has to do, let me see, so 12 minutes, we're doing good. It has to do with free will. There have been certain contacts allowed, as I understand, by the Confederation, but this is limited because of free will of those who are not oriented in such a way as to want contact. Many people on our planet want this material, but even though we disseminate it, many will not be aware that it is available. Is there any possibility of creating some effect, which I will call advertising, or is this against the principle of free will? Consider, if you will, the path your life experience complex has taken. Consider the coincidences and odd circumstances by which one thing flowed to the next. Consider this well. Each entity will receive the opportunity that each needs. This information source beingness does not have uses in the life experience complex of each of those among your peoples who seek. Thus, the advertisement is general and not designed to indicate the searching out of any particular material, but only to suggest the noumenal, I've never heard of that word, noumenal, the noumenal aspect of the illusion. You said that some of the landings at this time were of the Orion group. Why did the Orion group land here? What is their purpose? Their purpose is conquest, unlike those of the Confederation who wait for the calling. The so-called Orion group calls itself to conquest. As we have said previously, their objective is to locate certain mind-body-spirit complexes which vibrate in resonance with their own vibrational complex, then to enslave the unelite, as you may call those who are not of the Orion vibration. Was the landing at Pascagoula in 1973, when Charlie Hickson was taken aboard, this type of landing? The landing of which you speak was what you would call an anomaly. It was neither the Orion influence nor our peoples in thought form, but rather a planetary entity of your own vibration which came through quarantine in all innocence in a random landing. What did they do to Charlie Hickson when they took him on board? They used his mind-body-spirit complex's life experience, concentrating upon the experience of the complexes of what you call war. How did they use them? The use of experience is to learn. That's true. Consider a race who watches a movie. It experiences a story and identifies with the feelings, perceptions, and experiences of the hero. Was Charlie Hickson originally of the same social memory complex of the ones who picked him up? This entity of vibratory sound complex did not have a connection with those who used him. Did those who used him use his war experiences to learn more of the law of one? This is correct. Did the entities who picked him up have the normal configuration? His description of them was rather unusual. The configuration of their beings is their normal configuration. The unusualness is not remarkable. We ourselves, when we chose a mission among your peoples, needed to study your peoples, for had we arrived in no other form than our own, we would have been perceived as light. What density were the entities who picked up Charlie Hickson from? The entities in which you show such interest are third density beings of a fairly advanced order. We should express the understanding to you that these entities would not have used the mind-body-spirit complex Charlie except for the resolve of this entity before incarnation to be of service. What was the home origin of the entities that picked up Charlie? These entities are of the Sirius galaxy. Would it be possible for any of us to have contact with the Confederation in a more direct way? Now I'm going to try to stop and, add some sense. So would it be possible for any of us to have contact with the Confederation in a more direct way? So this is probably going to answer, if you're trying to contact the Confederations and the benevolent, positive beings, this could be an answer. In observing the distortions of those who underwent this experiential sequence, we decided to gradually back off, shall I say, from direct contact in thought form. The least distortion seems to be available in mind-to-mind communication. Therefore, the request to be taken aboard is not one we care to comply with. You are most valuable in your present orientation. May we ask at this time if you have a needed short query before we end this session? And then it talks about the lady. So I'm going to skip that. Okay, so the healing exercises that you gave us are of such a nature that it is best to concentrate on a particular exercise at a certain time. I would like to ask, what exercise should I concentrate on tonight? Again, to direct your judgment is an intrusion upon your space-time continuum distortion called future. To speak of past or present within, our distortion/judgment limits is acceptable. To guide rather than teach or learn is not acceptable to our distortion in regards to teach and learning. We instead can suggest a process whereby each chooses the first of the exercises given in the order in which we gave them, which you, in your discernment, feel is not fully appreciated by your mind-body-spirit complex. This is the proper choice, building from the foundation and making sure the ground is good for the building. We have assessed for you the intensity of this effort in terms of energy expended. You will take this in mind and be patient, for we have not given a short or easy program of consciousness learn/teaching. The way that I understand the process of evolution is that our planetary population has a certain amount of time to progress. This is generally, divided into 325,000 year cycles. At the end of 75,000 years, the planet progresses itself. What caused this situation to come about with the preciseness of the years in each cycle? Visualize, if you will, the particular energy which, outward flowing and inward coagulating, form the tiny realm of the creation governed by your council of Saturn. Continue seeing the rhythm of this process. The living flow creates a rhythm which is as inevitable as one of your timepieces. Each of your planetary entities began the first cycle when the energy nexus was able in that environment to support the mind-body experiences. Thus, each of your planetary entities is on a different cyclical schedule, as you might call it. The timing of these cycles is a measurement equal to a portion of intelligent energy. And I don't know why, but I'm feeling a being over here. It just came to me. This intelligent energy offers a type of clock. The cycles move as precisely as the clock strikes your hour. Thus, the gateway from intelligent energy to intelligent infinity opens regardless of circumstance on the striking of the hour. The original first entities on this planet, what was their origin? Where were they before they were on this planet? So I think this is where he starts talking about maybe Mars. I could be wrong. The first entities upon this planet were water, fire, air, and earth. I really like that. Where did the people who are like us, who were the first ones here, where did they come from? From where did they evolve? Okay, yeah, I was right. You speak of third density experience. The first of those to come here were brought from another planet in your solar system, called by you the red planet Mars. This planet's environment became inhospitable to third density beings. The first entities, therefore, were of this race, as you may call it, manipulated somewhat by those who were guardians at that time. What race is that, and how did they get from Mars to here? The race is a combination of the mind-body-spirit complexes of those of your so-called red planet and a careful series of genetical adjustments made by the guardians of that time. These entities arrived or were preserved for the experience upon your sphere by a type of birthing which is non-reproductive, but consists of preparing genetic material for the incarnation of the mind-body-spirit complexes of those entities from the red planet. I assume from what you were saying that the Guardians transferred the race here after the race had died from the physical as we know it on Mars. Is that correct? That is correct. The Guardians were obviously acting within an understanding of the Law of One in doing this. Can you explain the application of the Law of One in this process? The Law of One was named by these Guardians as the bringing of the wisdom of the Guardians in contact with the entities from the red planet, thus melding the social memory complex of the Guardian race and the red planet race. It, however, took an increasing amount of distortion into the application of the Law of One from the viewpoint of other Guardians, as it is from this beginning action that the quarantine of this planet was instituted, for it was felt that the free will of those of the red planet had been abridged. So wow, it's a lot to take in. So if you hear about, and I think I've channeled this before, if you think about Mars kind of being in like a PTSD phase now because of the past, this kind of answers it, Were the entities of the red planet following the Law of One prior to leaving the red planet? The entities of the red planet were attempting to learn the laws of love, which form one of the primal distortions of the Law of One. However, the tendencies of these people towards bellicose actions caused such difficulties in the atmospheric environment of their planet that it became inhospitable for third density experience before the end of its cycle. Thus, the red planet entities were unharvested and continued in your illusion to attempt to learn the law of love. How long ago did this transfer occur from the red planet to Earth? In your time, this transfer occurred about 75,000 years ago. Were there any entities of the form that I am now, 2 arms, 2 legs, on this planet before this transfer occurred? So were there any humanoids? There have been visitors to your sphere at various times for the last 4 million of your years. Speaking approximately, these visitors do not affect the cycling of the planetary sphere. It was not third density in its environment until the time previously mentioned. Then there were second density entities here prior to approximately 75,000 years ago. What type of entities were these? The second density is the density of the higher plant life and animal life which exists within the upward drive towards the infinite. These second density beings are of an octave of consciousness, just as you find various orientations of consciousness among the conscious entities of your vibration. Did any of these second density entities have shapes like ours? 2 arms, 2 legs, head, and walk upright on 2 feet. The 2 higher of the sub-vibrational levels of second density beings had the configuration of the biped, as you mentioned. However, the erectile movement which you experience was not totally affected in these beings who were tending towards the leaning forward, barely leaving the quadrupedal position. Where did these beings come from? Were they a product of evolution as understood by our scientists? Were they evolved from the original material of the earth that you spoke of? This is correct. Do these beings then evolve from second density to third density? This is correct, although no guarantee can be made of the number of cycles it will take an entity to learn the lessons of consciousness of self, which are the prerequisite for transition to third density. Is there any particular race of people on our planet now who were incarnated here from second density? There are no second density consciousness complexes here on your sphere at this time. However, there are 2 races which use the second density form. One is the entities from the planetary sphere you call Maldek. These entities are working their understanding complexes through a series of what you will call karmic restitutions. They dwell within your deeper underground passageways and are known to you as Bigfoot, which I've channeled the Sasquatch beings, and they're just some of the most amazing creatures, you know. Extremely loving. That's why I understand people. I understand people who aren't connected to this stuff because we've all been there. But that's why, you know, I've channeled the Sasquatch and they're so positive. So when I see people talking about, you know, we need to go and find and like kill big, you know what I'm saying, all these beings, it's like, hey man, they're so loving. They're so, I don't know, to me it's almost like they're another form of Gaia in a way. Okay. The other race is that being offered a dwelling in this density by guardians who wish to give the mind-body-spirit complexes of those who are, aware of this density at this time, appropriately engineered physical vehicles, as you would call these chemical complexes, in the event that there is what you call a nuclear war. I didn't understand what these vehicles or beings were for that were appropriate in the event of nuclear war. These are beings which exist as instinctual second density beings which are being held in reserve to form what you would call a gene pool in case these body complexes are needed. These body complexes are greatly able to withstand the rigors of radiation, which the body complexes you now inhibit could not do. Where are these body complexes located? These body complexes of the second race dwell in uninhabited deep forest. There are many in various places over the surface of your planet. Are they Bigfoot-type creatures? This is correct, although we would not call these Bigfoot, as they are scarce and are very able to escape detection. The first race is less able to be aware of proximity of other mind-body-spirit complexes, but these beings are very able to escape due to their technological understandings before their incarnations here. These entities of the glowing eyes are those most familiar to your peoples. Then there are 2 different types of Bigfoot, correct? This will be the final question. There are 3 types of Bigfoot, so there's 3 types. If you will accept that vibratory sound complex used for 3 such different races of mind, body, spirit complexes. The first 2 we have described. The third is a thought form, which I think that's what I connected to, the thought form, but I saw him, so I'm not too sure. I would like to ask if there's anything that we can do to aid the instrument's comfort. Okay, so I'm going to skip that. Okay. I think that it would clarify things for us if we went back to the time just before the transfer of souls from Maldek to see how the Law of One operated with respect to this transfer and why this transfer was necessary. What happened to the people of Maldek that caused them to lose their planet? How long ago did this event occur? The peoples of Maldek had a civilization somewhat similar to that of the societal complex known to you as Atlantis, in that it gained much technological information and used it without care for the preservation of their sphere. That's not good. Following to a majority extent, the complex of thought, ideas, and actions which you may associate with your so-called negative polarity or the service to self. This was, however, for the most part, couched in a sincere belief thought structure which seemed to be the perception of the mind-body complexes of this sphere to be positive and of service to others. The devastation that wrecked their biosphere and caused its disintegration resulted from what you call war. The escalation went to the furthest extent of the technology this social complex had at its disposal in the space-time present of the then time. This time was approximately 705,000 of your years ago. So wow, okay. The cycles had begun much, much earlier upon the sphere due to its relative ability to support the first-dimensional life forms at an earlier point in the space-time continuum of your solar system. These entities were so traumatized by this occurrence that they thought, well, someone's here. I don't know who's here, but someone's here because I keep like feeling someone over here, and then I just saw like a flash go across my eyes, so sorry about that. Yeah, someone's here. I'll try to connect to them. These entities were so traumatized by this occurrence that they were in what you may call a social complex knot or tangle of fear. Some of your time passed. No one could reach them. No beings could aid them. Approximately 600,000 of your years ago, the then existing members of the Confederation were able to deploy a social memory complex and untie the knot of fear. The entities were then able to recall that they were conscious. This awareness brought them to the point upon what you would call the lower astral planes, where they could be nurtured until each mind-body-spirit complex was able to finally be healed of this trauma, to the extent that each entity was able to examine the distortions it had experienced in the previous life illusion complex. After this experience of learned teaching, the group decision was to place upon itself a type of what you may call karma alleviation. For this purpose, they came into incarnation within your planetary sphere in what were not acceptable human forms. This, then, they have been experiencing until the distortions of destruction are replaced by distortions towards the desire for a less distorted vision of service to others. Since this was the conscious decision of the great majority of those beings in the Maldek experience, the transition to this planet began approximately 500,000 or 500,000 years ago, and the type of body complex available at that time was used. Was the body complex available at that time what we refer to the ape body? So, cavemen, ape men, whatever you want to say. Have any of the Maldek entities transformed since then? Are they still second density now, or are some of them third density? The consciousness of these entities has always been third density. The alleviation mechanism was designed by the placement of this consciousness in second-dimensional physical chemical complexes, which are not able to be dexterous or manipulative to the extent which is appropriate to the working of the third-density distortions of the mind complex. Have any of the entities moved on now, made a graduation at the end of a cycle, and made the transition from second-density bodies to third-density bodies? Many of these entities were able to remove the accumulation of what you call karma, thus being able to accept a third density cycle within a third density body. I know this is going to sound stupid, but it just came to mind. You know how a lot of us have like animals or pet whatever, and you really have that connection and you feel like they're you know what I'm saying? How you kind of feel like they're a person. I wonder if they are almost like a third density person in a second density body. I mean, I can be wrong here. I'm just speaking. I'm just guessing, but I don't know. That came to mind, so I wondered. Okay. Okay, where was I? Most of these beings so succeeding have incarnated elsewhere in the creation for the succeeding cycle in third density. As this planet reached third density, some few of these entities became able to join the vibration of the sphere in third density form. There remain a few who have not yet alleviated through the mind-body-spirit coordination of distortions the previous action taken by them. Therefore, they remain. Are these the Bigfoot that you spoke of? These are one type of Bigfoot. Then our human race is formed of a few who originally came from Maldek and quite a few who came from Mars. And because I have so many Martian experiences, I wonder if I came from Mars. I don't know. Are there entities here from other places? There are entities experiencing your time-space continuum who have originated from many, many places, as you would call them, in the creation. For when there is a cycle change, those who must repeat then find a planetary sphere appropriate for this repetition. It is somewhat unusual for a planetary mind-body-spirit complex to contain those from many, many various loci, but this explains much, for you see, you are experiencing the third dimension occurrence with a large number of those who must repeat the cycle. The orientation, thus, has been difficult to unify even with the aid of many of your teach learnings. When Maldek was destroyed, did all the people of Maldek have the fear problem, or were some advanced enough to transfer to other planets? In the occurrence of planetary dissolution, none escaped. For this is an action which redounds to the social complex, let me move this, of the planetary complex itself. None escaped the knot or tangle. Is there any danger of this happening to Earth at this time? We feel this evaluation, of your planetary mind-body-spirit complexes, so-called future may be less than harmless. We say only the conditions of mind exist for such development of technology and such deployment. It is a distortion of our vision understanding that the mind and spirit complexes of those of your people need orientation rather than the toys needing dismantlement. For are not all beings that exist part of the Creator? Therefore, freely to choose is your own duty. It's on us, man. Tough shit. When graduation occurs at the end of a cycle, and entities are moved from one planet to another, by what means do they go to a new planet? In the scheme of the Creator, so where are we, about 40 minutes? In the scheme of the Creator, the first step of the mind-body-spirit totality beingness is to place its mind-body-spirit complex distortion in the proper place of love and light. This is done to ensure proper healing of the complex and eventual attunement with the totality beingness complex. This takes a very variable length of your time and space. After this is accomplished, the experience of the cycle is dissolved and filtered until only the distillation of distortions in its pure form remains. At this time, the harvested mind-body-spirit totality beingness evaluates the density needs of its beingness and chooses the more appropriate new environment for either a repetition of the cycle or a moving forward into the next cycle. This is the manner of the harvesting guarded and watched over by many. Whew, I'm going to stop pretty soon. When the entity is moved from one planet to the next, is he moved in thought or by a vehicle? The mind-body-spirit totality beingness is one with the Creator. There is no time-space distortion. Therefore, it is a matter of thinking the proper locus in the infinite array of time-spaces. And I don't know why this is popping up to me, but this is making me think of when I had my past life experience. Because, and again, this may not be fully related, but when I had my past life experience of remembering being murdered in Egypt, what I assume is it had to have been Egypt. When I remember being murdered. I've talked about this before, so if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, basically I kind of like I want to use the law of one because, like, at the time I learned this past life, I didn't know about the law of one, but I basically knew the spiritual meanings in life. I basically, what I'm holding here, I hold in all my lives, but I'm always like, I always get the short end. I always get screwed over because, you know, as you can see in this play we're in, the negativity is very strong. But basically, I remember going up into like a pharaoh. I still remember the vision to this day. It gives me the chills sometimes. But I remember being asked, will you conform and convert and basically, you know, worship like the pharaohs and the gods at the time, kind of not like the law of one, but basically the many different like gods at the time, and will you worship your leaders? And I remember Spirit telling me that I was going to be safe, but to say no and to be true. So and I'm not trying to be negative here, but it's reality. I remember, you know, I remember being killed, and after I got my throat cut, I remember quickly, and this is like tying into what they just said about like, do you go from thought form from one place to another or whatever? As soon as I died, I instantly was somewhere else. So imagine, if you will, you know how a lot of people say, oh, I wonder if this is a dream or whatever. So imagine if you like died and then you like woke up as another being somewhere else, you know. That happened to me. It was weird. Everything was blacked out, like everything was becoming dark. But then once it became dark, quickly I was instantly like somewhere that was totally not on Earth, just a spiritual higher dimension, I guess you would say, or the oversoul, whatever, you know, just not this third density. It was very, you know, non-earthly. I don't know, that just came to me. So I wonder if, you know, they're saying, you know, everything is part of the Creator. So each person, no matter how big this goes, each person will be moved by the Creator, because you are one with the Creator at that time, as it just manifests, you know. I don't know. So, whatever. Okay, while an entity is incarnate in the third density at this time, he may either learn unconsciously without knowing what he is learning, or he may learn after he is consciously aware that he is learning in the ways of the law of one. By the second way of learning consciously, is it possible for the entity to greatly accelerate his growth? Is this correct? That is correct. Then although many entities are not consciously aware of it, what they really desire is to accelerate their growth, and it is their job to discover this while they are incarnate. Is it correct that they can accelerate their growth much more while in the third density than in between incarnations of this density? This is correct. We shall attempt to speak upon this concept. The law of one has one of its primal distortions, the free will distortion. Thus, each entity is free to accept, reject, or ignore the mind-body-spirit complexes about it and ignore the creation itself. There are many among your social memory complex distortion who, at this time or space, engage daily, as you would put it, in the working upon the law of one, in one of its primal distortions, that is, the ways of love. However, if the same entity, being biased from the depths of its mind-body-spirit complex towards love and light, were then to accept the responsibility for each moment of a time-space accumulation of present moments available to it, such an entity can empower its progress in much the same way as we describe the empowering of the call of your social complex distortion to the Confederation. So I'm going to finish this page and then I'll stop. Could you state this in a little different way, how you empower this call? We understand you to speak now of your previous information. The call begins with 1. This call is equal to infinity and is not, as you would say, counted. It is the cornerstone. The second call is added. The third call empowers or doubles the second, and so forth. Each additional calling, doubling or granting power to all the preceding calls. Thus, the call of many of your peoples is many, many powered, and overwhelmingly heard to the infinite reaches of the one creation. For the general development of the reader of this book, could you state some of the practices or exercises to perform to produce an acceleration towards the law of one? And I feel many people who are going to be, I mean, not a lot of people listening to these videos. I barely get anybody because everyone's all about channeling. But for the people who are watching this for like the true knowledge, you know what I'm talking about, I think this is what you guys, a lot of you came here for. What can you do to progress with the law of one? Like, what can you do in your responsibility? Exercise 1. This is the most nearly centered and usable within your illusion complex. So I'll read this a little slow. The moment contains love. That is the lesson goal of this illusion or density. The exercise is to consciously see that love and awareness and understanding distortions. The first attempt is the cornerstone. Upon this choosing rests the remainder of the life experience of an entity. The second seeking of love within the moment begins the addition. The third seeking empowers the second, the fourth powering or doubling the third. As with the previous type of empowerment, there will be some loss of power due to the flaws within the seeking and the distortion of insincerity. However, the conscious statement of self to self of the desire to seek love is so central an act of will that, as before, the loss of power due to this friction is inconsequential. Exercise 2. The universe is one being. When the mind-body-spirit complex views another mind-body-spirit complex, see the creator. This is a helpful exercise. Exercise 3. Gaze within a mirror. See the creator. See God in yourself. Exercise 4. Gaze at the creation which lies about the mind-body-spirit complex of each entity. See the creator. The foundation or prerequisite of these exercises is a predilection towards what may be called meditation, contemplation, or prayer. With this attitude, these exercises can be processed. Without it, the data will not sink down into the roots of the tree of mind, thus enabling and ennobling, which I've never heard of that, the body and touching the spirit. Ooh, okay, so I want to keep going, but I'm not because I've gone almost an hour. But the next session, we're going to talk about Atlantis and Lemuria. So that's going to be very interesting. So I'm very excited. I may read this off tomorrow because my dad's coming, like I said, but I don't know if he's coming at night. I don't know if he's coming in the afternoon. Who knows? But he's in town, so he'll probably come earlier, so I'm not sure. So, whew, that was a lot. So I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know. Once I'm done with this book, I'm going to ask you guys if you want me to continue with the Law of One, or if you guys want me to read off my personal favorite book that got me to open up. Because like I've said to you guys, and I know some will understand this, some won't, this is showing you how to understand how everything, okay, I don't want to say outside us because, everything's one, but how everything works. But if you want to channel, open your abilities, whatever, you can't do that with just this knowing. You have to do the inner work. And the book that's my favorite book taught me how to do the inner work. So if you guys want me to read that book, I'd be happy to do so. And we are smack dab in the middle. So, we're about halfway there with this, so that's awesome. And it's funny, I helped my mom at her house today with a couple things. I went over there to assist her because she just moved into a new place. And she was like, yeah, I really want to borrow your Law of One, your book one, I heard you talking about it and sounds really good. And I was like, I'll do that, but you got to wait because I'm still reading this off. And if I'm reading off 15 to 20 pages at a time and I have 100 or 120 pages to go, it's going to take a while. So we'll see. But I hope you guys have a good night. I'm gonna try to see who's been around me. Whoa. Alright, so something weird happened, so I'm gonna let you guys go. If I find out who's around me, I'll connect, I'll make a video, but my audio is getting kind of weird, so I'm gonna go, guys. So thank you, have a good night, blessings, and if I don't speak to you guys until after Christmas, have a blessed holiday and spend it with your loved ones and feel the love, because you deserve it. We went through a long year, so you deserve to relax and feel that. So hope you guys have a good one. Take care, and I will see you guys in another video. All right, peace.